What's an article? What's an article? I was asking myself this very question in the post office yesterday, standing in line waiting to sign for, as it so happens, an article, a postal article, not the postal article. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, an article in English is a word that precedes a noun and simply indicates specificity. This sounds quite complicated, and to be honest, it's quite complicated to say without spraying everyone within 15 feet, but the concept's quite simple. The definite article in English is the word the and indicates a specific thing or type. For example, the train is an hour late. By contrast, the indefinite article in English is any of the words a, an, or some, and the indefinite article indicates a non-specific thing. For example, would you please pass me an apple? We always precede a word with a if it doesn't start with a vowel sound. For example, take a hike. I'm spending a weekend at Bernie's. Or there's a knight in shining armor. Similarly, we precede words with the indefinite article an if they do start with a vowel sound. For example, an ostrich, an enormous mess, or an occupational health and safety policy.
Height is correlated with a lot of things. Up to a certain height, taller people make more money than the vertically challenged, and the taller presidential candidate almost always wins. Now a study finds that your height as an adult has a profound effect on your perception of your health. Short people judge their health to be worse than average or tall people judge theirs. The research was published in the journal Clinical Endocrinology. Data for the study came from the 2003 Health Survey for England. More than 14,000 participants filled out questionnaires and had their heights measured. The study only looked at how good the subject thought his or her health was, not their actual health. Questions focused on 5 areas: mobility, self-care, normal activities, pain or discomfort, and anxiety or depression. Men shorter than about 5'4" and women shorter than 5 feet reported the worst impressions, but small increases in height at the low end had much bigger effects on perception than the same increases among taller people. Other studies have shown, ironically, that shorter people on average actually live longer. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Steve Mirsky.
Our skin tells us about our surroundings by detecting temperature, pressure, and other external conditions. If a pot handle is too hot to touch, we can feel this heat before burning our hand. Robots may someday have this protection too. A team of researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, has developed a large area sensor network integrated into a thin plastic film that acts like an electronic skin. They demonstrated the concept with an e-skin sample about the size of a postage stamp that lights up in the specific places it's touched. The work is in the journal Nature Materials. The harder the e-skin gets pressed, the brighter the light. The researchers envisioned that flesh and blood users could have an e-skin smart bandage that monitors wounds. A large sheet of the material covering the wall of a room could even operate like a display screen, and a robot with such a surface could more effectively interact with its environment. Of course, we don't want our robots to be too sensitive. Then they might balk at cleaning up nuclear waste or spending years at a time alone on Mars.
I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission.
Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Tech, I'm Larry Greenmeyer.
A book a day may keep dementia away, even if you read it as a kid, because a study finds that exercising the brain, at any age, may preserve memory. The work appears online in the journal Neurology. Previous studies have shown that engaging in brain-building activities is associated with a delay in late-life cognitive decline. But why? Does flexing the old gray matter somehow buffer against age-related intellectual impairment, or is cognitive loss simply a consequence of the aging brain's physical decline? To find out, researchers questioned nearly 300 elderly individuals about their lifelong participation in intellectual pursuits, like reading books, writing letters, and looking things up in the library. Then, every year, for an average of 6 years until they died, the subjects took tests to measure their memory and thinking. What the researchers found is that folks who worked their mental muscles, both early and late in life, remained more intellectually limber than those who didn't, even when a post-mortem look at their brains revealed the telltale signs of physical decline. So if you're headed to the beach, don't forget a hat and a book, both to protect your head. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin. The mayor of New York famously tried to ban supersized sodas. But instead of legislating a drink's volume, maybe we should change its name, because a new study shows that the words we use to describe portion size affect how much we actually consume. The findings are in the journal Health Economics. As portion sizes at many restaurants grow larger, so do our waistlines. Of course, no one says we have to finish that 3/4-pound burger or chug an entire big gulp, but what determines when we lay down the fork and push away from the table? To find out, researchers led by Brian Wansink of the Cornell Food and Brand Lab served up some spaghetti. Some volunteers received a portion labeled regular. Others got a dish described as double size. Although both plates contained the same amount of pasta, people ate more when they thought their serving size was normal. Participants who thought they'd gotten the piggy-sized portion left 10 times more food on their plates. So if a big beverage were called, say, double the size of your stomach, maybe we'd think twice about draining every last drop. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Mind, I'm Karen Hopkins.
Everywhere you go, the trillions of microbes in your gut go too, and that's a comforting thought, because according to a new study, a more diverse population of intestinal bacteria is linked to better health. The work is in the journal Nature. Danish researchers gathered gut microbes from almost 300 obese and non-obese adults. The intestines of roughly 1 in 4 participants contained fewer and less diverse bacteria than average, and members of this group were more likely to be obese and to suffer from gut inflammation. By looking for only a few specific bacteria, researchers could predict whether a subject fell into the low-diversity group. Certain species could even indicate whether an individual was slim or overweight, and these microbial markers might also serve as signs of future health risks, because low-diversity participants who were obese were more likely to gain additional weight over time. But a low-diversity gut won't necessarily doom your health. According to another study in the same journal, it's possible to increase microbial diversity by developing a decent diet. Remember, you're eating for trillions. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American 60-Second Science, I'm Sophie Bushwick.
Maybe this will motivate you to work out. New research supports the idea that you don't need to spend hours at the gym every day for your body to start feeling the positive effects of exercise. In fact, a single session on a stationary bike can affect your very DNA. Okay, so your actual genetic code won't morph into that of Conan the Barbarian. But exercise sets signals in motion almost instantly that determine which genes get turned on and off. These, what are called epigenetic changes, signal to the muscles to, well, tone up. The study is in the journal Cell Metabolism. Researchers recruited 14 men and women in their mid-20s who didn't usually exercise. After a short but intense spin on a bike, samples of their muscle tissues showed temporary but big changes in several types of epigenetic signals. Further tests showed that some of the same effects could be achieved with a jolt of caffeine. Alas, black coffee can't provide all the benefits of your morning workout. But if you get to the nearest coffee shop by running, you're definitely starting out on the right foot.
Flaming cauldrons of molten metal have long been the primary venues for steel production, but blast furnaces require a lot of coal, which means greenhouse gas pollution. In fact, worldwide, steelmaking is responsible for 5% of annual emissions. But scientists working on a way to harvest oxygen from the iron oxide in lunar soil for future moon bases realized that they happened on a better way to make steel here on Earth. The trick? Produce steel the way we make aluminum. Use electricity rather than flame. To make steel the old-fashioned way, you blast iron ore with heat and purify the resulting molten metal with oxygen. The process removes carbon from the steel but produces carbon dioxide. Making a ton of steel releases roughly 2 tons of CO2, and the world uses a lot of steel in cars, buildings, and other infrastructure. The new method involves passing a current through a molten pool of iron oxide, which drives off the originally sought-after oxygen. The byproduct is steel, and depending on the source of the electricity, the process could be nearly CO2-free, which, as far as the atmosphere is concerned, would be very cool.